What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Investing Bros. It is 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, September 21st. Thank you so much to everybody who is choosing to be here with us this morning. Go ahead and smash that like button if you're excited for today's show. We're going to be talking and breaking down what happened yesterday afternoon with Jerome Powell and the Fed announcement. The meeting itself actually went pretty close to what we expected. Now, the price of Bitcoin didn't do what we expected. We're going to talk about that more, not only in the section we talk about the Fed, but we also going to talk about that on the charts. However, I do want you guys to know right off the bat, what happened yesterday, I do see as a very bullish sign for Bitcoin, but make sure you stick around for the entire episode so you hear more about it. We also have some interesting things coming out of Washington because Congress has been working to make some pretty big decisions, and some bribery has been exposed in Washington, D.C. We're going to break that down and more. I am joined this morning by my absolutely amazing and favorite co-host that joins me every single day, and that is Mr. T. Shroom from down in Gainesville, Florida. T. Shroom, how are we feeling today?
Well, I'm feeling better than I deserve, Tim. Feeling very good. Man, yesterday was a bit of a whirlwind, trying to get a lot of different things done, but got it done, and it was in bed by 10 p.m., which is good. So I got a good night of sleep. So that's always good to have. But yeah, I mean, I can't complain. You know, when you're better than you deserve, you definitely don't have the right to complain. So I do have a quote of the day for us today, and we're triple dipping, Tim. We are triple dipping back into Leo Tolstoy. We just can't get away from him. If you make it a habit not to blame others, you will feel the growth of the ability to love in your soul, and you will see the growth of goodness in your life. Leo Tolstoy just coming in strong yet again with these bangers of a quote. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, it's a good one. I would absolutely classify that as a banger. Have you ever read the book? When you said the quote, it popped in my brain and then just popped right back out. It's by that former Navy SEAL, and Extreme Ownership, I think is the name. Jocko Willink. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Jocko Willink wrote a book called Extreme Ownership, and it is a fantastic book. It's a book that I read here a couple of years ago and absolutely changed my perspective. Especially from a place of leadership. Anytime you're in a place of leadership, or if you want to be in a place of leadership, that concept of having extreme ownership is a absolute must, and definitely changed how I viewed a lot of different things in my life. So I agree 100% with that quote. Those of you guys are looking for a good book recommendation, go check it out. Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership, absolutely a must read if you are or want to be a leader in the world. But speaking of other co-hosts that I love, and again, I said T-Shroom is my favorite, but there's really a tie. I see that Piper is in chat. Army Piper. Of course, we also love Piper, but he's out here vacationing because he's wealthy. He's very wealthy, it looks like. Just kidding. Well, I mean, I'm not kidding. I think he is very wealthy. The man has done very well for himself. But love you, Piper. Hope to have you back on here very soon. T-Shroom, are we ready to jump into our economic outlook today?
I think so. Just before we do that, Josh Denham down in the comments said, my cat's name is Tolstoy. So you probably have a very wise...
Yeah, wise cat.
Yeah, very contrarian cat. Probably putting up a lot of opposition to things that he thinks is unjust. So
very interesting. All right, let's do it. Let's go to my screen. Let's break down what's happening this morning. Of course, yesterday was the big decision here in the U.S. Well, guess what? The U.K. had their own interest rate decision this morning. Right. Where the expectation was they were going to raise interest rates by 25 basis points, but they did not. So bullish day for Great Britain. They kept their interest rates at the same level. Of course, that might have had something to do with the fact that just a couple of days ago, their inflation numbers came out lower than expected as well. So very interesting thing there. Moving on to tomorrow, Great Britain will get their retail sales. So we'll look at that. Taking an early peek at next week, there's not necessarily a lot of huge things happening early, but next Wednesday here in the United States, we will get durable goods orders month over month. And previously was not looking very good. Forecasted right now, let's see. It says -5. We'll have to go look more into that. But we have an expectation very different than last month here with durable goods. We'll make sure to cover that more early next week. Of course, next week, you guys know the show will be moving to the afternoon, but we're still going to have our economic outlooks. We're going to go from kind of covering the open of the stock market and how people are getting into the day to kind of helping close out the market and what people are doing at the end of the day. So it's going to be an interesting switch. That being said, we are still, T-Shirt and I were just talking about it before the stream, we're still going to put out content early at 9 a.m., kind of updating you guys on everything big that's happened in the news, taking a quick look at charts. I think from time to time, it might just be phone videos, but for the most part, we're going to try our best to continue to produce 9 o'clock content. It just won't be live. So look forward to that. Get a double dose of investing bros throughout the day. Looking over here to next month. So, of course, we just had the FOMC decision yesterday. Looking forward to November. Let's just update this, just make sure we have the most up-to-date data. 71% predicting at this point that we're going to stay paused in November. Now, I was looking through it this morning, but earlier this was at 68, so I want to see if anything else gets updated. Right now, December, they're predicting 53% that we're going to stay paused. Almost 40% saying they're going to have an interest rate hike in December, and a couple are saying we're going to have 50 basis point rate hikes. I doubt that's going to happen, but something to keep in mind. Let's go forward to January. 51% saying stay paused. We're picking up some steam in January, so there's still some concern we could get one more rate hike at least. Moving forward to March, 50% saying we're going to stay paused, but now you start to see some people predicting that March could be the first month that we get a rate cut. By the way, we're going to talk about rate cuts a little more today. We discussed that a little yesterday, but I'm going to show you guys some charts that I think are very interesting. We'll kind of break that down. May, we're moving forward. 45% saying we're staying paused, but we're picking up steam for cuts. June, which last week was the expected day or the expected month for us to have our first rate cut, is still saying the highest prediction now at this point, 39% saying we are going to stay paused. But you're seeing the balance shift over towards rate cuts coming. And now it is July. By the hair of its chin right there, 33% saying we will get our first rate cut in July. That pivot will happen in July. 31% still saying we're going to stay still, but July is the first date that we will get a pause. And the expectation for the end of 2024 is that we're going to close out about 4.75 to 5, which is, about 50 basis points. So the expectation is that somewhere in the year 2024, we will have 2 rate cuts of 25 basis points. We will keep you posted on if anything changes there, but that does mean more than likely we should be getting a pivot right in time for the beginning of what should be a Bitcoin bull market. Now, we'll talk about that more in a second, but let's move on and take a look at liquidations. Let's refresh this page, go out to our 24 hours. You are seeing green, which means more longs were liquidated than shorts, but sometimes that doesn't tell the full story. $17 million worth of longs were liquidated yesterday in Bitcoin versus only $4 million worth of shorts. Of course, price is down today. That explains it. In fact, we just broke below 26,600. So while price is moving down again, I actually think there's some bullish things to take away from what we saw yesterday, but we'll cover that here in a couple minutes. Ethereum had $10 million of longs liquidated versus 3 million shorts. Others coming in the second place. That's just a mixture of a lot of different things. So we're going to keep moving on here. Lots more longs liquidated yesterday. Prices went down in the crypto space as a whole. Let's take a look at Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index staying exactly where it was yesterday. Now, I would expect, unless we get a massive boom this afternoon, a massive uptick in price, we're probably going to see this kind of tick back down into the fear, with us being nearly $1,000 lower than when this more than likely was printed. But we'll keep you posted on that. Let's keep moving on. Take a look at our coin market cap open of the day. You guys will see here that Bitcoin down almost 2%, down 1.88% last 24 hours, but Ethereum down 2.43. Moving on to some other coins, BNB is over 2% down, XRP down 1.5%, Cardano down 1.5%, Dogecoin only down 0.7%, Solana 2.2%, Toncoin, which again was one of the biggest movers of the last week. You guys can even see right there in the last 7 days, 25.5% up. But it took a big spill yesterday, almost down 5% in the last 24 hours. Let's see if there's any other big movers. Biggest gainer, it looks like, Eunice says Leo up almost 2%. Let's take a look at the biggest gainers, though, overall. Immutable X. I saw a post about this over on Twitter this morning. Immutable X up 22%. Wow. A large majority of the last 7 days is up 30% in the last 7 days. And you can see 22% for Immutable X, and then the next one, Algorand, up 3.85. So very big drop off in our big gainers for sure. Let's take a look at big losers this morning. eCash down 6%, Optimism down 5%, Toncoin almost 5%, Stellar Lumen almost 4%, Gala 3.5%. So yeah, not necessarily too big of a loser, but overwhelmingly we're way more losers than gainers. But let's look at that 7-day. Immutable X taking the lead, but again, most of that has to do with what happened early this morning, up 22%. After that, Toncoin continues to lead the way, 25% up in the week. Aave up 16% in the week. Maker up 13% in the week. Let's take a look at our biggest losers of the week. IOTA takes the cake with 12. Axie Infinity 12 as well. So very interesting. As a whole, though, not necessarily the big losers of the last week aren't necessarily that big, not that volatile of a week so far. But with that said, let's go ahead and adjust and move into some story time. Once again, if you have not done it already, go ahead and smash that like button if you are loving the streams. I see GT Nuts says, keep AM streams, please. I hear you, GT Nuts. Again, we're going to still put out a lot of information in the morning. But again, after a long discussion with me and T-Shroom and trying to decide what's best for the channel, what's best for us, it will be moving to the afternoon. But we hear you, and that is why we're going to continue to make top-notch content for you guys in the morning. And then, if you want to wake up early in the morning and watch our live stream from the day before, it should still all be pretty relevant. With that said, though, T-Shroom, let's go ahead and jump into our big story of the day. What do you have for us?
Yeah, let's get into it. Before we do, just remind you guys, we do have a tax partner now. If you are looking to do your taxes this year and be compliant with the United States laws, not everybody listening to the sound of my voice is in the U.S., so this is really only relevant to folks in the U.S. You can go here to decrypted.tax, and there's a link in our description. And just let Ernest know that we sent you, and he'll attribute it to us, and you're on your way to helping sponsor the show. So very, very awesome and excited to be working with their new partner here at decrypted.tax. Let's get into it, guys. So we'll start with a little bit of context here. You can see back in the 1980s, you can see how high interest rates were. They were tipping up at 20%, certainly well in 15%. So I just want to put in a little perspective. Although now, we're not happy about the higher for longer phenomenon, it was very high for a lot longer than what we're predicting to happen here. So zooming back into where we are now, you can see that since 2022, we have absolutely skyrocketed in that interest rate. Not a good thing. Even including these jumbo increases here of 75 basis points in 2022. So let's go ahead and look at the headline from yesterday and get into a little bit of the reporting from CNBC. Fed declines to hike, but points to rates staying higher for longer. That, of course, is going to be kind of the theme moving forward. Gross domestic product now expected to rise 2.1 this year. We talked yesterday about the SEP that does get put out in September, and we did get that, and we're going to talk about that more. One of the data points in there is that the Fed is predicting a higher GDP than what they previously were projecting. So that's positive. That's positive for U.S. economy overall. And then the Fed is also planning on reducing its bond holdings, a process that cuts the central bank balance sheet by some $815 billion since June. So that was, I don't have the chart pulled up right now, but that was what I showed you guys yesterday, is the Fed's balance sheet. So they have been selling mortgage-backed securities and bonds to clear that off their balance sheet. That is continuation of quantitative tightening. And the fact that they're planning on continuing to do that is bearish, right? But that's not the only factor here. And that is not something that we're seeing too much concern about in the long term. So projections released in the Fed's dot plot show that the likelihood of one more increase this year and then two cuts in 2024, two fewer than were indicated during the last update in June. So that's super key. Two fewer than were indicated during the last update in June. That was the last time we got issued the SEP, which is it's an expanded PDF on what the plan or the projections are for the Fed. So taking a look here, I went into Photoshop. I make these thumbnails every morning, so I thought, why don't I give the market a little bit of help here, and I overlaid the June dot plot to the present dot plot from September, the one we got yesterday. And as you can see, there is a lot to interpret here, but ultimately, they're predicting that that rates are going to be a little bit lower here than what they were projecting in 2023. So they're not going to come up to that 6.5 level. Rather, they're going to maintain here at 5.5, meaning that there is still room for one more hike into this year. So Tim, I want to hear from you. Kind of what was your takeaway, maybe from these dot plots or just from the meeting in general? What really struck you from Jerome's speech?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, so as we predicted yesterday, we got the pause we expected, and then the kind of concept that he would stay in the middle. He wouldn't be overly hawkish or overly dovish. He would stay in the middle, but slightly lean more dovish. And I think it's open to interpretation. It's open to opinion which way he leaned hawkish or dovish. There were definitely certain comments that I think you can make the argument that was kind of a hawkish statement. But there was other comments for sure you have to say he was leaning towards dovish. Probably the biggest statement to me, and I didn't get to watch it live, but I went back and watched bits and pieces and read a lot of content about what people were saying about it. The biggest thing I saw that he said was the prediction that we would not get a recession until 2027. Very interesting. Now, in the short term, that is bullish. It's kicking the can down the road. But what he's implying, and then with him saying the expectation is we're going to see our GDP rise by 2.1%, the expectation is, guys, the economy is still going to be moving in the right direction to the upside. And in reality, we've been saying for a long time we have hope for a soft landing. The expectation is still there. I know he made some other comments about how that's not the main priority, but ultimately he kind of hinted at we still believe we can have a soft landing. Even when you heard him talk about a 2027 recession, he kind of implied that if it comes, it would be a mild one. But there's a couple of things, T-Shroom, to think about when he gives us the date 2027 for a recession. First of all, that would not come into effect until we either have the second, round of Joe Biden's presidency or we have a brand new president. Remember, we talked about on the show yesterday that it would be in his best interest to continue to make Joe Biden's presidency and the current administration's realm of power look positive, because it's all but a sure thing that if somebody from the Republican Party wins the nomination to become president, if enough people in the Republican Party win seats in both Congress and Senate, more than likely this man, Jerome Powell, is out of a job. So kicking that can down the road till the next administration could buy him the time that he needs, potentially to make the economy look like it's in a good spot. Hashtag Bidenomics. Maybe Biden or another Democratic nominee wins the presidency. The Democrats keep power. And again, I'm not sitting here trying to make political statements of good, bad. I'm just kind of walking you through what would make sense for Jerome Powell's job. And then if we do have a problem in 2027, let's say Joe Biden's president again. Well, guess what? We'll walk through it. Joe Biden will be done. He can't run for a third term anyway. They'll pass off the economic problems to the president after that. And they got what they wanted. I don't know if Jerome Powell wants to keep this job much longer than the next couple of years. But if we were to see a Republican nominee, and the front runner has to be Trump, I mean, I think until I see something else, Trump looks like the easy winner of the Republican nomination. That's a really easy way to dump and try to blame Donald Trump and the Republican Party for ruining the economy once again. That's the first thing I took away from that date, 2027. Let me know in chat what you guys think about that. Is that kind of what you had as well? Is that where you're factoring? Is that the first time you kind of heard that thought? Let me know in chat. Here's the next thing that I think is very interesting. What happens in late 2026, early 2027 in the Bitcoin market, T-Shroom? If you're following the 4-year cycle, the peak of the Bitcoin bull market should be late Q3, early Q4 of 2025. Bear markets are almost always the bottom of bear markets are always 12 to 14 months after the high. What does that mean? End of 2026, early 2027 should be the bottom of the next bear market. And so while I'm not going to sit here and try to tie the conspiracy theory of saying that when they're saying the economy will crash, that's going to correspond to purposely be a part of the 4-year cycle, I think this is a coincidence and a convenience that the expectation is the economy won't do well right around the time that we should get the next bear market bottom for Bitcoin and the crypto space. That was my takeaway from watching those statements, is that short-term bullish, long-term bearish. But even when you look at that long-term bearish, most of us in the crypto space who use the 4-year cycle for our analysis, we're already expecting 2027 to not be a great year of price action for the stock market, for Bitcoin, for crypto. So to me, I walked away from this whole thing saying that I believe this is massively bullish, keeps us right on track to continue to make the predictions of big movements the way we have with some good accuracy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is the big story, guys. That's what's going to be moving the markets. Ultimately, my takeaway from the Fed speech yesterday is if you can be patient, I mean like maybe 1 or 2 weeks, I think we're gonna be seeing a little bit of a sell-off in stocks and in crypto, and those are going to be some good times to DCA. So my personal takeaway from this is I'm going to wait, delay my DCA and buy a little bit down on some of these dips on the equity side. Mostly is when I'm delaying that DCA, but also a little bit on Bitcoin. So probably waiting a couple extra days to see if Bitcoin goes lower, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but Bitcoin's kind of high right now. So that's going to be something that Tim illustrates quite a bit. But are we ready to jump into our factoid of the day before we get into the charts?
Well, we have a super chat, which first I want to start off.
Sweet.
Thank you to Elo Brown for the super chat. Now this is the epitome of how rumors start. This is actually kind of funny. Rumor has it there's a feud between the bros. Is there a show takeover happening in the background? Okay. All right. First of all, Elo Brown, thank you so much for the super chat. And I love you. I know you're a big supporter of the channel. No, you're not a big fan of the move of Showtime, but T-Shroom, do you and I have is there something happening behind the scenes? Are we in a fight at the moment?
No. If there was anything, I'd be gone immediately. I don't operate with feuds, and it's just not.
It's a fun little rumor, and of course, obviously, I know why people would be bringing that stuff up. But no, we are stronger than ever. T-Shroom and I are good. I mean, that's the other thing about T-Shroom and myself is even when we got into this, like we fully trust each other. And don't get me wrong, T-Shroom and I definitely have times where we have different opinions on things, and we have good, constructive conversation about how to move forward. But one of the things that makes T-Shroom and I work very, very well is we're like brothers. We trust each other. We know, like I know full well that T-Shroom will always be making decisions that will be in support of myself and my family. And in the same boat, I would never make a decision that would hurt T-Shroom and his family. So that's what makes us work. That's why we are a dynamic duo. And the same can be said for Army Piper. Piper, we love Piper. We know Piper loves us. That's the thing about the bros community. I want you guys to know this. The purpose of this channel, the purpose of this community is so that we all come together and learn and grow together. I've got a long way to go in my investment journey. T-Shroom has a long way to go in his investment journey. And a lot of you guys have a long way to go in your investing journey. But we want to do this together in a zone that's drama-free, chaos-free. We want to be a community that is uplifting, encouraging, and helps people understand and learn everything as it goes along. So if that's what you guys are looking for, again, we love you guys. If you guys want to try to create drama, that's not on us. I'm trying to keep this a drama-free community. And you guys can know from this side of it, it will always stay drama-free. But love all of you guys. If you guys want a channel like that and a community like that, you found the right one. Make sure you hit subscribe. Eric Wallen says, Tim looks like a snuggler. I'll tell you what. I don't know if I'm a natural snuggler, but when it comes to that kid Brody that I have, yeah, I'm a snuggler for the sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we have had a little bit of conflict with the factoid elf recently because he's been getting way off topic, way off crypto. So I had to have a talk with the little factoid elf. There he is. And he's brought it back home. So today our factoid is a little more crypto oriented. Let's go ahead and get into it. This crypto network allows blockchains to securely interact with critical off-chain information needed by complex smart contracts on-chain. Is it A, Ethereum, B, Bitcoin, C, Chainlink, or is it D, ApeCoin? Tim, what are your thoughts initially?
It's not Bitcoin.
Okay.
Scripture allows blockchain securely. See, it's like easily my brain immediately is saying C, and I want to go with Chainlink. But it seems like it's too easy of an answer. I'm going to go with C because maybe that's it's a fake out in two ways. Maybe it's so easy that you would think don't give the easy answer.
Right.
But then that's the trick. And so I'm going to stick with C.
It's like we're not going to hike this one, but there might be a hike later on before the end of 2023. So
yeah,
a little 4D chess. Well, we're going to get to the end of the TA, and then we will reveal the answer to the factoid that our little factoid elf has created for us, and that's going to be a whole lot of fun. So, Tim, you ready to go ahead and jump right on into the charts?
Yeah, we got another super chat.
Okay.
The community is just coming in. They're coming in with fire. We got Elliot Locke, which, by the way, again, Elliot, thank you so much for the donation. We love you as well. But he says, my money is on T Shroom. I think he could take Tim.
I think we're in different weight classes, so I don't know if it would be fair. But I mean, maybe if I could get a lucky punch to the jugular or the throat or something like that, maybe you could go down and then I could jump on. But I don't know. I don't think about fighting people very often.
Yeah, no, I think to this day I've never been in, like, I've done sparring with like friends, like boxing, but I've never been in a full blown fight. Like, I've done like little test things with people, but yeah, most people don't want to fight me. So
I'll tell you who I do want to fight though, and that's Crypto Seth. I am focused and I'm training to battle him in the octagon, and he's going down. Crypto Seth, you have no chance against me. All right. So there you go.
You heard it, Seth. Don't just stand around and let him call you out like that. All right, we're going to keep moving on here. Let's get into some crypto TA, starting off with Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and share my screen. Of course, you guys know our charts are always brought to you guys by Chart Prime. You guys can see even let's go down here. If you guys will look, like, just keep an eye on this line right here, right? If you follow this line and then go right here.
Oh, wow.
You guys will see the Chart Prime symbol. Make sure you guys, if you don't already have Chart Prime, go get them today. There's a link in our description down below. You get 45% off your first month or first quarter. If you guys watch the show daily and love the TA and love the charts, a lot of it, again, I use fundamental TA, but I love getting to use, especially, I'm an oscillator guy. These oscillators that Chart Prime has created, to me alone, is worth the money. And then you get these other indicators as well that help just kind of give you a clearer picture of what good support and resistance levels are. To me, it's worth every cent. Make sure you guys go operate with that today. We're going to start out here on the daily chart. And as we mentioned before, I'm very bullish on Bitcoin, especially based off of what we had. So to me, this actually makes perfect sense that the price would dip on this news because, and I'll explain why, I'm a big believer that right now is still a heavy, heavy, heavy season of market manipulation. Guys, the addition of BlackRock and Fidelity and other institutional adopters coming into the space, it will make the price do this. When we zoom out and we take a look at Bitcoin over long term, we are going to continue to see Bitcoin's price. Give me the marker right there. We're going to continue to see it do this kind of thing, and we're going to keep going up, and we're going to keep going up. The price will go up. So the easiest advice you could ever get, and non-financial advice, but it kind of is financial advice, it's just solid financial advice, is buy and hold. Time in the market is better than timing the market. And BlackRock, yeah, there you go, give the buzzer. BlackRock is going to be long-term positive for price action. What it's not positive for, ladies and gentlemen, is short-term price action and trying to utilize just the news to predict which direction markets will move. Why? Because they will play a constant game of cat and mouse with you, where when the price really should be moving to the upside, they're going to bring it to the downside. And then something's going to happen and you're going to be convinced that means price should go to the downside, and then price will jump back up to the upside. And this is going to be a constant game that you have to be able to, A, understand the strategy that they're using. B, you have to understand what the charts are really telling you, where the real information about where support and resistance levels are. And then C, you're going to have to at certain times get kind of lucky by going against maybe even what your gut is saying. That's the problem with manipulation. If this was a coin or a project or an asset that was just retail investors, then it's a lot easier to know for a fact which way it's going. But this is the whole teaching of Wyckoff, that when you get these big players in the games, whales, institutions, they operate like one unit, called the composite man that will always and forever want to shake you out of your money. So they will sell, they will post bullish stories. They'll say, oh, look, Bitcoin's doing really well. And then they'll sell right on you. And then we're going to get down here in price. And there's going to be news stories being, oh, here we go. Bitcoin is falling to zero again. Bitcoin's dead. And they'll want you to sell, and then they'll buy it up, and they'll push the price back to the upside. You've got to learn how to follow their tactics, follow what they're doing. And the best way to do that is to know their strategies, to watch the charts, and to be prepared for anything. So again, price should be moving to the upside. Price is moving to the downside. Let's take a look at what oscillators are saying. Now, the oscillators definitely gave us room to move to the downside. By the way, just got a super chat from Eric Wallen, who's been a member for 2 months now, saying Investing Bros is the highlight of my day. We love you guys. I'll tell you this right now. From a man that is not emotional whatsoever, and he actually talked about that over in our Discord. That was a very sweet message from Eric Wallen. That's one of the nicest things I think Eric Wallen's ever done or said. So I'm really proud of you, Eric Wallen, and you know that I love you, and you know that you're a big part of this community. What the heck is happening? Why is my MVP oscillator not working now? This is very, very frustrating. Let's go look at the 6-hour chart, see if it cleans it up for it. Maybe I'll just move to, yeah, it looks like that one might be being constructed. Maybe it's being fixed. I'm going to run the 4-hour chart. Don't need to use my MVP oscillator. I can tell you right now, it more than likely is not flashing by just yet because we are seeing the oscillator start to, oh, look, it just came back up. Boom. Yes, we're not getting strong green. It's turning lighter green, but that's not very strong green histograms right there. Our oscillator, our chart prime oscillator, which by the way, if you guys have ever watched other channels, you usually see the RSI be a straight line. This is what I love about Chart Prime is that they turned it into candles so you can see the real power and momentum of the move. We still have a little ways to go on the 4-hour chart to the downside with the RSI. Would not be surprised at all to see us come back down in this range here about 26.3, maybe even some wicks down here towards 26.2. The other thing would be, I would say this one's not necessarily a chart prime indicator. Did I just turn auto on? Yes. Let me control this. Let's look at our fixed range volume profile and take a look here. We could see coming back down to the point of control, this 26,000 that we already have right here. We could see a retest. And depending on what chart you're looking at, yes, we have some higher highs and higher lows in here. That would break those higher lows. But if you really look at this and you were to come out, let's go like to the 8-hour chart, give or take. The reality is the way I would draw this would not be a bunch of little moves. I would almost say, guys, that this is just one solid move right here. So whether we bounce somewhere in this range around 26.4, or even if we come back down to point of control at 26,000, I still believe that we're working to potentially set over the next couple of weeks higher highs and higher lows. Now, I'm very open to changing my mind on this. Of course, I didn't think that we were going to lose 27,000 like we did. So that part did surprise me. That one got me this morning. But to me, it's an instant switch to saying, all right, I didn't predict it this way. But to me, with the bullish news we have coming out, with the fact that the economy from the government's perspective, again, I think all of us know there's some things going on behind the scenes that are not very fun. But from the government's perspective, they're actually looking at the economy doing very well. You will see institutions and others go off of that. And this, to me, looks like just a supply grab from probably BlackRock, from Fidelity, from others that know that their ETFs are coming very soon. This is just a manipulative downward move before they get to do what they want to do. Let's take a look at some other indicators here. Let's go back to the 4-hour chart. We talked about this. That's another level that we talked about yesterday to keep an eye on. We have not gotten back down to, and this is kind of supporting that zone of saying maybe we get back down here to some former wicks. Look at our dynamic reactor here on the 4-hour chart. Another amazing tool from Chart Prime. Could we just be coming down to bounce off of that? I definitely want to watch. Maybe even will happen while we're live, T-Shroom. Let's watch to see if Bitcoin ends up finding some support right there on that 4-hour dynamic reactor. After that, let's take a look at our support and resistance zones, multi-time frame support and resistance zones. Continues to be really nothing happening right here in the middle. All of our support and resistance is either sitting all the way down here at 25,000 or all the way starting kind of back up here towards 28,600, moving towards 29,000. We do have some order blocks, which again, we have not filled, but I just told you, I think that this might be a longer term move that comes up and fills these order blocks up here above 28,000 and potentially even gets us back up towards 29 before we get a bigger rejection. I do think that there will continue to be FUD in the market. I do continue to think there will be a bigger move of FUD in the market. I don't know if another bank will close. I don't know if We'll see massive whales liquidating. I'm still believing that we're going to be dropping below 25,000 at some point. But for right now, I'm still bullish based on everything we have in the news to move to the upside. And keep your eyes on those levels. We got another super chat here from Elliot Locke. Thank you to everybody for all the support we are having today.
Yeah, let me address this one because I read it and I'm thinking about it. So he said, I have a ledger question. I moved one Link token to my ledger. When it arrived, it showed on Ledger Live as ETH, not Link. What the holy H is going on here? I'm scared to move it back to the exchange. Yeah, I'm a wuss. So what I would say here is I don't use Ledger. I use Arculus. I don't know that Tim would be able to answer this any better than I could, but essentially what you're having here is probably a glitch. I'm assuming, but I don't know. I'm not Ledger customer service, right? So I don't know. What I would do is go into forums and try to see if this is a problem that other people have experienced. But the good news is that there's really only two worst case scenarios here, which is that it somehow moved ETH onto your ledger, in which case that's not really that big of a loss. Like if it had turned it into ApeCoin or something, that might be not that great. But the good news is that it's ETH, right? So it's not going to be that bad. But my guess is that it's just showing as ETH because that's probably the network that you transferred it over onto, the ERC20 token.
Elo Brown has a great solution, a great help, just really trying to help out another bro. He said, Elliot, you loaded the asset and generated a new address and it showed up in a different asset than you intended, ? Let's make sure things are working. Send all of your ETH to my wallet. That could work. So,
Yeah, we'll Elliot, this is a great thing so for everybody listening, for these kind of technical questions, the Discord is 100% a way better place to address these things. A, because we're going to have to move on. We have limited time on a live show. But B, there's going to be way more people in there who could actually help you and move into a private message board to be able to address this more effectively. Sorry, Elliot, that happened and that we don't know the answer for it.
Yeah. Well, real quick, we're going to wrap up TA here, and I'm going to kind of breeze through that. On my watch board, you guys can see here a lot of red. The Dixie is green. U.S. oil is green. Those are not two things you want to see green. I don't make sure you guys can see above my face. Yeah. But when we come to the crypto, Atom is the only one that is up this morning. That is very interesting. But you're going to see on these others, and I know T-Shroom in my face kind of blocked this slightly, but a lot of big red numbers, especially compared to Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin's down 2.35. There are a couple coins, like Cardano is not outpacing that. But with the fact that Ethereum is outpacing that and other large altcoins, you guys are going to see Bitcoin dominance. Despite the fact that Bitcoin is down today, we'll continue to talk about this. But the Bitcoin dominance will continue to move to the upside in two different ways. There will be days, I do believe, where Bitcoin will move to the upside and outpace other coins, and that will move it to the upside. But it also will happen to the downside, that as we start to see price slip, we'll see Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Matic, XRP maybe slip to the downside, but we'll just see all those altcoins outpace Bitcoin, and that's another reason the Bitcoin dominance will continue to the upside. So this chart is very, very telling. I don't know why I still have my marker on. Let me turn that off. This chart is still very, very telling. We're still watching it move to the upside. It's another sign, ladies and gentlemen, in case people are still wondering, what are we looking for a bull market to come back? One of the things you are looking for is for this chart to max out and start moving back down to the downside. That is one of these signs that the bull market will be back. And again, that's not going to happen. There'll be days where it moves to the downside, but it's not going to happen in large-term downward movements on this chart, probably for at least a whole year. I do think about this time next year, maybe a little earlier, maybe 11 some months. That's when we'll start to see some real bullish momentum happen in Bitcoin and the crypto space, and this Bitcoin dominance chart will fall. But we'll continue to monitor that. Again, in the future shows, we'll look at some other altcoins as well, take a look at their charts. But right now, red. Red is the color of the day. Let's see if that changes for tomorrow's Friday show. But T-Shroom, let's go ahead and jump over. Let's start off with that trivia question. Let's get the answer to our trivia question and then jump into some other headlines from the crypto news this morning.
Absolutely. Well, the answer to our trivia question is Chainlink. You were right, Tim. You were right. So Chainlink is it's an oracle. In case you don't know what an oracle is, it basically helps bring off-chain data on-chain so that, for a great example I like to use to help explain Chainlink is like there's NBA basketball games, right? And there's a lot of dApps out there that allow you to gamble on those basketball games using your crypto. Okay, well, how does the blockchain know if the Lakers beat the Celtics, right? Well, because Chainlink fetches that data, the final scores from ESPN, CBS Sports, and 5 other news outlets that are legitimate, right? And it brings that data in and says, okay, the Lakers won by 8 points. Whoever was betting on the Lakers, they get, that data now moves into the smart contract, and then the parties that bet however they bet get the reward or lose their money, right? So that is what Chainlink does, and that's just one example. Chainlink also does a lot more mundane things, like also keep the time, right? It can deliver what time it is to a blockchain. So if you're a developer, Chainlink is something you've more than likely used. And it is also a very entrenched, and it has a deep moat, and it is close to a I don't know. I haven't checked in on its market dominance recently in the Oracle space. I have heard of some other oracles that have kind of popped up, but it's kind of seen as a safe bet in crypto. Not as safe, anywhere near as safe as Bitcoin. But I know DZ is kind of famous because he DCAs into Chainlink every day. So it's got a little bit of a weird price action. It doesn't go as 1-to-1 with Bitcoin. It doesn't move with Bitcoin as much as a lot of the other altcoins does. But I like it. I have a lot of it, so it's one of my faves. Cool. Well, that's our trivia for today. Our little factoid. Let's give a little bit of a shout out to the elf who does a lot of work for that every morning. Great guy. All right. So we're ready to go ahead and get into the stories here then. We'll start it off with this one here, which is that Bitcoin reserves on exchange are approaching a 6-year low. Mm-hmm. So Tim, for newbies out there, they may hear that 6-year low, Bitcoin. Oh, what should I do? Tim, why don't you guys give us a little bit of an explanation before we get into the details of this article? Is that generally a good thing or bad thing?
Yeah, it's a very good thing long term. Whenever you see money flow onto exchanges, it's not a guarantee that there's about to be a sell-off, but a lot of time people will take money out of cold wallets and move it onto public exchanges for the purpose of transacting it. And transacting it will always move prices downside. So whether they just want to sell it for US dollars, sell it for stable coins, or move it into a different coin, like that's something that is pretty popular. I'm going to take my Bitcoin, move it into another asset that I think is going to be more bullish. That would have a negative a price effect on Bitcoin. In this situation, we're seeing it get to lows again, meaning nobody wants to move their money on exchange, meaning no one wants to sell. Well, if no one wants to sell, the only way that things happen is more people are buying the little bit that is still left out there, which means that the demand is higher than the supply. And what happens when demand is higher than the supply? Price go up. So this doesn't mean that price has to shoot up. This is another thing. I should have even mentioned this while we were doing the TA when I talked about while I'm overly bullish. It's not just what we heard from Jerome Powell. Things like this, seeing how low the supply is on exchanges, is a reason to believe that price should be moving to the upside in the next couple of weeks and months. Now, I want to clarify, I still believe that Bitcoin could be going down to that CME gap below 20,000. This is a thing that is still bullish, but a lot of times you see the story flash as, again, a form of manipulation to get that one more good dropout. And people are like, oh, that chart doesn't mean anything. No, that chart is measuring a long amount of time, a lot of data. Price going to 20,000 and then bouncing back up is still bullish, and that's really not that big of a deal. It's going to feel like a big deal. It's going to be a punch to the gut, but it's actually very bullish long term. And the bull market, again, we got to wait a little bit longer for the real start of it, but it is coming. It is very real, and this is one of the reasons.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think you covered that pretty well. Probably, definitely better than the article covers it, but ultimately, there is a chart that was actually pretty useful at illustrating this. We can go check that out really quick. You can see the price is black. The exchange reserve is I guess, purple. But you can see, the reserve is low, and it is the lowest it's been in 6 years. So that's pretty accurate. This is coming to you from Crypto Quant is the data provider here on that. You can see the price. Pretty accurate there. So that's...
Which, by the way, again, not that it's financial advice, but anyone who's wondering, all right, Tim, if you're thinking price should go to 20,000 or maybe a little bit below, should I sell all my Bitcoin now and then buy it more there? Because if you could predict it if you had a crystal ball, yeah, that's a great move, but none of us have a crystal ball. And while that's what I think is going to happen and what I'm projecting to happen, I want you guys to know I am not selling my Bitcoin. What I have is I have what is called dry powder, extra money, extra dollars on the sideline that I will purchase. If I see sub $20,000 for Bitcoin, I will purchase. And if we don't see that, what's going to happen is I'm going to end up using that probably somewhere closer to around 35, which is not as good of a buy. In the long term, 35,000 is a great buy, especially talking about an 150, maybe $200,000 Bitcoin. But I'm holding off. I'm kind of taking an educated bet, a guess that I'm like, I think we're going sub 20. I'm going to buy sub 20 with that number. If I am wrong, I'll simply buy a little bit higher, but I'll keep my average purchase of Bitcoin very, very low. That's the proper way to do it. You should not just simply sell your long-term holding bags because you think price is moving the downside, because in the off chance you are wrong, you just screwed yourself royally. Instead, always try to keep some dry powder for some downward movements. And if you guess wrong, it's okay, because you still hold your large bag from before. Now you just get to add a little bit more at a higher price on its way to the upside.
Absolutely. So moving on to our next story, there will be a lot of Bitcoin not coming on exchange for this reason. Mt. Gox trustee extends deadline for creator repayment by a year. Cousin of I was going to make a joke there. Sorry. Nobuaki Shabiaski.
Nobuaki? I don't know.
I was going to make a joke that's the cousin of Satoshi Nakamoto, because it sounds similar. Anyway, but the trustee overseeing Mt. Gox, they're extending the deadline, right? So what does that mean? That just means that there's not going to be as much selling pressure. Guys, this has been a headline in crypto for as long as I can remember, that this Mt. Gox, there was a legal suit and there was all kinds of legal stuff going on. Well, there's a bunch of Bitcoin sitting on the sidelines because one party beat the other and they want to sell it, but now they're putting the deadline to sell it up to a year. So I don't know that they could do it tomorrow, right? That doesn't mean that the deadline's gonna be a year from now, but that's the deadline extension. So kind of what this tells me is this is a non-story for at least a year, right?
The fact that stories keep coming out about Mt. Gox and this almost like fear-mongering of they're going to sell is kind of the confirmation to me that they're not going to, because that's such a let's just think about this logically, T-Shroom. If they actually want to sell, why would they put out a press release before that to scare other people to dip the price and then they don't get to take any money from it? The logical thought for Mt. Gox, if and when they want to sell, is to not say anything. Take advantage of a pump, sell the top of a pump, and then they actually get to make a little bit more money than if they spread we're not going to see them say, all right, by the way, guys, tomorrow afternoon, we are selling our Bitcoin. Because that would be the dumbest thing in the world. That's just not how they're going to operate. It's going to be a surprise. Mt. Gox is not going to sell. Guess what they're going to wait for? They're going to wait for a good pump. I actually would not be surprised to see Mt. Gox not sell until closer to, if not in the year 2025, when there probably will be, over $100,000 price action for Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, something else that's not a huge surprise is that Congress, our elected officials, are doing bad things, and they deserve a slap on the wrist. But this is breaking news. U.S. Senator Bob Menendez, and I've heard that name before. He's a senator, guys. Senator. This is a big deal. He's accepted bribes in gold bars worth up to $400,000 in exchange for help with a criminal case, federal prosecutors claim. I don't know anything about the criminal case. There might be some details, but kind of what I care about most is that this is insane, right? That this is actually coming to light. I think that's the story, is that this probably happens a lot, but that this is coming to light. And we've seen some enforcement. I believe there's a bill being introduced so that senators and congressmen cannot trade stocks and their spouses cannot trade stocks.
Yeah, it actually it probably won't make it all the way into law, but it did pass the House committee. And again, I think there's been some recent stories. I don't think this is the only politician who's been exposed for some corruption charges and bribe charges. There's many. It's just outrageous. I mean, the details are coming more and more out. Of like these politicians who are making an annual salary of what is like $200 and something thousand a year, which that's good money. I would love to have that salary. If they want to trade with me, I'd take it. But they have net worths of like 30, 40, 50 million, some of them hundreds of million. It's like, I'm not the greatest math expert in the world, but you know how many years you'd have to work with a salary of $200,000 to have a net worth of 40 million. Like that's a little bit crazy. Now, some of it they get paid to go to speaking events, but guess what? They're not making $40 million to get speaking events. What they're doing is they're insider trading. They're taking information they know. I saw something on Twitter the other day that it was doing the math of like it was like $400 million this year alone was made from Congress members trading based off of companies that they had access, or they made decisions that heavily impacted the price of those markets, and they made all collectively over $400 million in this year alone. So is it going to pass? I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys right now, I don't think it will. I think that's the problem. When you're trying to out the corruption, but the corrupt people are the ones that get to vote on it in the end, your chances of getting it passed are not great. But at least the public is watching them. The eyes are on them. It's very apparent and well known what they are doing. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it at least helps keep them in check moving forward.
Yeah. A couple other things to note about this story is I guarantee you that the only reason why we're seeing this headline is because this guy, Bob Menendez, is not playing ball in some part of the government, right? Whether it's his own party or the party across the aisle. He is not playing ball. He's taken a hard line. And so, his bribes are getting exposed, which is an unfortunate truth, but that just kind of illustrates the level of corruption of our government. The other thing of note is that it's gold. Right? Why gold? Well, because it's untraceable. It's even more untraceable than Bitcoin. So very interesting there. Well, we're not going to leave Washington just yet. We've got another headline here. House Financial Services Committee passes a bill to ban the Federal Reserve from creating a CBDC. Another one that's unlikely to go all the way to Biden's desk and get signed by Biden, but this would be something we're absolutely in favor of, the federal government not being able to, the Federal Reserve not being able to issue CBDC. So, I mean, Tim, I think you would genuinely agree with that.
Yeah. Yep. I would love it.
Cool. Moving on here, we've got a pretty big juicy one here from Parper. Army Piper sent me this one this morning. Average interest rate on 30-year mortgages rise to 7.59%. It's highest since December of 2000.
Yeah.
With interest rate cuts now no longer expected until September 2024, it is likely we see 8% mortgages soon. On top of the Fed holding rates higher for longer, U.S. deficit spending is so large that $1.9 trillion in bonds are being issued over 2 quarters. That was from Yellen, I believe, like last week. That was announced, and this is flooding bond markets with supply and driving interest rates even higher. Yes. Currently, the median payment on a new home is nearing a record $2,900 a month.
Yep.
And then they're asking, what is the long-term plan here? This comes from the Cabesi letter, and you can kind of see that illustrated here. So, Tim, what gives?
Well, I've heard people talk about this, and this is the truth, that the 7.5% interest rate is not actually really that high compared to maybe what some people took in interest rates in the past. It's true. We actually kind of got spoiled with where interest rates on buying houses were, especially around the year 2018, 2019, when sometimes people were buying houses for less than 2% interest rate. The price of houses were good. Down there in Gainesville, T-Stream, obviously, for those of you know, I lived in Gainesville with T-Stream before, and then I moved up here a couple of months ago. But I remember talking with my friend who is a real estate agent who bought a house in the year 2018, end of 2018. He purchased his house for $78,000. And in 2021, 3 years later, he sold the exact same house. He put about $20,000 into it to redo some stuff. So we're talking about like just under $100,000. He sold this house for $300,000 only 3 years later. Just in that time, the amount of houses that went up. So my point here, what I'm trying to get at is, yes, we have seen these interest rates before, but we saw these interest rates back when a house that would cost you darn near $500,000 today probably only costed you about $150,000 to $200,000. So while these interest rates are not actually historically that high, it's the fact that you're adding these higher interest rates than what have been recently with astronomical prices on houses to begin with. And by the time it's all said and done, you're going to spend in the next 30 to 40 years well over $1 million to buy a $400,000 house simply because of the way these interest rates and those high prices are moving together. It's getting ridiculous, and it's just continuing to back up that prediction made by several people that the future is that you will own nothing and you will love it. They're going to find a way to pacify the babies. Like, this is ridiculous. We should be screaming, but they're going to do other things. They're going to have all these different ways that it's a really cheap way to do this and a cheap way to do this. And you'll get free food if you do this. And you get free this. But in reality, they're just slowly but surely taking away all possessions so that you don't own anything and you won't even realize you should be upset about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And it's only going to get worse. So that is almost going to wrap out our stories. We got one more here. And this is, I haven't been interested in the SBF, FTX, all the trials and all the drama. But this last week, we've been seeing some interesting headlines coming out of this. And here's the next one. Justin SBF's mom encouraged him to avoid disclosing several illegal political donations using stolen customer funds, FTX lawsuit says. So there she is. She's becoming a little bit more of a character in this saga. Miss Freed, I assume, is her name. I don't know. It doesn't say her name here, but there she is.
Maybe she's Bankman. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That usually when there's a hyphen there. But so that's going to be an interesting development. Does it really, in fact, impact our portfolios? Not really, which is why it's something we're going to graze over pretty quickly here. But
I am curious to know. Of course, these are his parents. Like a couple days ago, his dad was kind of thrown, under the bus. To now, it's his mom getting thrown under the bus. I'm wondering, is this SBF's lawyers trying to maybe alleviate some of his charges and dump them off on his parents? Is this an outside source? Like, is he not wanting to out his parents, but other people are kind of sorting through the evidence? I mean, if I was SBF's lawyer and SBF was my client, not his parents, I would do this. I'd be like, listen, man, I know you love your parents, but if your parents screwed you and you're facing, upwards of 30, 40 years in prison, and I could get this down to like 5 to 10 and they can serve the other, 20 years, let me help you out here, man, and reveal this evidence that it's really your parents doing a lot of crazy things. This wasn't all on you. That would be what I would do if I was his lawyer. But I'm not a lawyer and I'm not his lawyer, so I have no idea what's actually happening there.
I don't know. My hunch here is that these details have been locked away on documents, and now they're coming to light because of the court hearings, right? There's people that want their money back, and they're paying these lawyers a lot to go in and figure out, hey, what the heck actually happened here, and whose money should we fork back over and give to these clients? So we'll see. But I think that's why these details are coming out now. It's been well hidden. I mean, the parents, they popped up every now and then at the beginning of kind of the FTX shabacle story, but then it kind of went quiet, and now it's not so quiet. But kind of as we wrap out here, we got only about 2.5 minutes left. I think really the most important thing here, as it has been for last 5 years, is the Fed, right? And the Fed has just come out, and in classic Fed fashion, they've left everybody with a little bit of mystery, right? They've decided to pause hikes or cuts, just go even, go flat, right? But they left it on the table that they're going to likely, right, increase another time this year. So, that'll be interesting to watch. Now, I think there's a little bit of game theory there, right? Because if you come out with like, oh, potentially there's going to be this hawkish event before the end of the year, right? That's now a chip that you could take back off the table if the economy does start to move in a downward direction. You could have one of your Fed speakers they're constantly speaking. It's almost every day, certainly every week. You could have one of your Fed speakers come out and float the idea, that hike that we said that we were going to do in 2023, it's not looking like we're going to do that. Markets go up, right? So that's something to think about there, how they're kind of setting the table for whatever's going to be best for them, and whatever's going to ultimately be best for their buddies on Wall Street. So it's always interesting to watch, and I'm excited to see what comes next.
Yeah. Well, that is all we have for today. Make sure, guys, on your way out, you go ahead and smash that like button. If you're new here and you enjoyed our show today, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. As always, I want to start closing out again with thoughts of the day, encouragement, because again, this whole channel is not just about helping people get better with their investment strategies and with growing their portfolio, but also just improving and growing as people. And there's something a story I heard a long time ago. So Floyd Mayweather, Say what you will about him. There's a lot of thoughts about Floyd Mayweather, but it's pretty hard to argue with the fact that he was the greatest boxer of all time. Of course, now he's at least mostly retired. I don't think he has any fights coming up, but he was just impossible to defeat. And he did something. And someone asked him once, what is so important? What is one of the biggest things that sets you apart? And one of the stories he told was that he actually hired a person to follow him around, telling him, Floyd, you are the best. You are the greatest. No one will beat you. You are the best. You are the greatest. No one can beat you. You are the best. You are the greatest. No one can beat you. Why am I saying this? Because the truth is that words, no matter what your spiritual beliefs are, words have power. Even scientists who have no religious affiliation have said there is something that gets triggered in the brain when it hears something positive about themselves, that there's something more powerful than when they hear something negative. And I'm a firm believer that words have power. Every word you say has the power of life and has the power of death. And I urge every single one of you, I urge you, when you speak about yourself, when you speak to others, when you speak to the people around you, to choose life. I worked at an after-school care program a couple of years ago. It was with inner city kids, especially ones that were struggling, potentially falling behind in their grades. I don't know if you guys know the numbers, but it's statistical that if a kid falls behind before third grade and does not get caught back up, their chances of graduating high school are only 20%. Their chances of ending up dead, in prison, or in some sort of gang activity is at 80%. And I cannot tell you how many times my heart was broken listening to the things that these kids sometimes would say about themselves, what their friends would say to them, hearing stories of sometimes even what parents and grandparents would say to them that would discourage them. They would talk about big dreams, like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a president. And their family would tell them, you're not going to be anything. You're going to live in the same house that you live in right now. You're going to work if you're still alive, you're going to work in a grocery store down the street. It crushes the spirit of people when you choose death with your words. Please, let's become a people that speaks life over one another, that speaks life into ourselves. That is the way we will see this world continue to get better and to grow. With that said, though, that's all we have for you guys today. We will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for the last 9 a.m. show, but it's going to be a good one. With that said, love you guys. See you tomorrow.
Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor of the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shrooms news, got the word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.